The story begins high in the snow-covered mountains, where danger is close behind. Narlan Flood, a skilled magician, and his equally powerful wife, Enska, are racing through the blizzard, fleeing from a horde of terrifying goblins. These goblins are more than just wild creatures. They're loyal minions of a sinister, shape-shifting monster named Voss. Towering, spider-like, and full of malice, Voss rides one of his own mind-controlled slaves like a horse, relentlessly hunting the couple through the rugged terrain. As they flee, Narlan tries to lighten the tense mood by suggesting some playful names for their unborn children. Enska, despite the urgency of the situation, entertains the conversation but quickly shoots down every name he offers. Before they can settle the debate, the ground trembles, and Voss appears before them in his horrifying form, halting their escape. Without hesitation, Enska summons fireballs with a flick of her hand and hurls them at Voss, but he barely flinches. His shadowy body absorbs the blasts, and he retaliates with a wave of dark magic that tears through the air like a storm. Instantly, Enska raises a shimmering magical shield around them, but the force of Voss's attack pushes her to the edge of her power. Seeing her struggle, Narlan drops the reins of their enchanted sled and rushes to her side. In desperation, Enska pleads with Narlan to use his last resort, the enchanted violin. Narlan pulls it from his pack, places it under his chin, and begins to play. The melody that flows from the violin isn't just music, it's ancient magic, powerful and pure. The notes soar through the mountains, echoing off the cliffs like a sacred chant. Voss and his goblin army begin to falter, their limbs weakening, their minds clouded. One by one, they collapse, stunned by the melody's force. Exhausted but safe, Narlan and Enska fall into each other's arms. Relieved, they laugh, and in celebration of their victory and their love, Narlan declares, "We'll call her Betty." Enska smiles. The name is perfect. The scene then shifts forward about a decade, to the present day, inside a bustling middle school music room. Instruments clash in a chaotic mess of sound. Drums pound, pianos clank, and flutes squeal as the young students try, and fail, to find harmony. The music teacher, clearly over it, drags his hands down his face, exasperated by the racket. Amid the confusion, a girl steps forward, Betty. Quiet and confident, she raises her violin and begins to play. The moment the bow touches the strings, the room begins to transform. Her tune is sweet, flowing like a river, and it captivates everyone. Slowly, the other kids find her rhythm and join in, turning the disorganized mess into a magical performance. The teacher is stunned and deeply impressed. After class, Betty walks with her two best friends, the energetic, daydreaming Nate and the curious, boy-crazy Abby. Nate is already imagining their future as music superstars, private jets, tours around the world, and luxurious meals. Abby, however, has a more down-to-earth interest, Betty's mysterious older brother, Winch Flat. She has a very obvious crush on him, which Betty finds both hilarious and confusing. To her, Winch is a moody, gothic weirdo, definitely not crush material. Outside the school, Enska arrives to pick up Betty. Trying to act like a normal mom, Enska awkwardly asks Abby and Nate about their bonuses. The kids look baffled. Betty cringes in embarrassment and quickly drags her mom away, whispering, "Can you please just be normal?" Enska sighs and says she's trying her best. At least she came to pick her up. Betty storms ahead, frustrated. Just then, a speeding bus roars down the road toward them. Without thinking, Enska grabs Betty and teleports them both out of harm's way in a flash of blue light. Afterward, she apologizes for using magic in public, but Betty just smiles. "That was amazing," she says. As they reach home, Betty casually waves toward a nearby grave. A cheerful voice responds, "Hi, honey." It's Grandma, waving back from her grave like it's just another day. In this family, even the dead stay in touch. Inside the house, chaos reigns. A loud crash comes from upstairs. Winch Flat is hard at work on his zombie experiments. He yells down to Betty to come see his latest creation later. That evening, Betty stands in front of her mirror, staring at her reflection. She wishes she had magic too. Suddenly, her younger twin siblings, Morbid and Silent, appear from behind. They announce that it's time for dinner. At the table, the twins eat without lifting a finger, literally. Their food floats through the air and into their mouths, like invisible hands are feeding them. Winch Flat calls it external digestion, making everyone laugh and gag at the same time. As the family eats, Narlin brings up the upcoming Quicklime Games, a magical event held only for magicians. Betty eagerly begs to go, despite having no magic of her own. She promises to learn someday, but Enska gently refuses, saying it's not the right time. Frustrated and hurt, Betty complains to Narlin that even the dog gets to go, but she doesn't. That's when Narlin shares a family secret. All of her siblings, including the twins, Winchflat, and even their dog, were created using magic. Betty, stunned, asks, "Then how was I made?" Narlin and Enska smile warmly. "You," they say, "were made with love, not magic." After dinner, Narlin notices that Betty still seems sad. He sits with her and offers words of comfort, reminding her that magic isn't everything. "Love," he says, "and music, those are powerful too." To cheer her up, he invites her to play a CS tune on the violin with him. As they play, Narlin tells the story of their people. Long ago, in a distant land called the Kingdom of Nowhere, there lived the Clift people, magical and musical beings. But everything changed when a cruel tyrant, a powerful mage much like Enska, rose to power. His first act was to ban music, fearing its power. Betty asks, "Is that why we left Nowhere?" Narlin nods. Some songs are so strong, they can overpower even the darkest magic. While he speaks, Betty notices an old scroll tucked in her father's magical suitcase. Curious, she asks, "Can we play that one?" Narlin's face goes pale. "No," he says quickly, slamming the case shut and sealing it with a complex magical lock. Betty watches, intrigued. Later that night, her curiosity gets the best of her. She tiptoes into Narlin's room and spots the suitcase. She reached out carefully and tried to open it, but the moment she touched it, the suitcase glowed and resisted her. It was sealed with a powerful magical lock, impossible for her to undo. Just then, Winch Flat appeared in the doorway, his long shadow stretching across the floor. He had caught her red-handed. "You know it's enchanted with thousands of combinations," he warned her, arms crossed. "You'll never open it that way." But instead of turning her in, Winch smirked. "Unless we use a little magic." Betty's eyes widened with excitement. "Will you help me?" With a dramatic sigh, Winch agreed. He took the suitcase to his room and began casting a spell, his hands weaving through the air. The latches snapped open, and the suitcase creaked open slowly. Betty didn't wait. She reached inside, grabbed the scroll, and carefully unrolled it. It was the forbidden scroll, the one holding Clef's ancient and powerful melody. Without fully understanding its danger, she raised her violin and began to play the haunting tune. As the notes filled the room, a wave of pure, radiant energy erupted from the scroll. The windows rattled. The curtains blew violently. A fierce, magical wind surged across the neighborhood like a storm. Far away, in the land of Nowhere, King Merat stirred. His eyes opened in his throne room as he felt a deep disturbance in the balance of magic. "The song," he muttered. He summoned his loyal advisor, Wulas, and ordered, "Send out the goblin spies. Find the girl." The next morning, Winch Flat confronted Betty, looking unusually serious. "No one can know about this," he told her. "No one. Not even Mom and Dad. That scroll's song. It's too dangerous. Keep it secret." But Betty was too inspired, too curious. She ignored his warning and slipped the scroll into her backpack. The day of the big school concert arrived, and the auditorium was packed. Parents, teachers, and classmates filled every seat. Betty had invited her entire magical family to come watch. Everyone was there, even the twins Morbid and Silent. While Betty tuned her violin on the stage, Morbid and Silent noticed a strange goblin lurking outside. Sensing something was off, they followed him. They tracked the creature through the alley behind the school. When they confronted him, the goblin drew a magical crossbow and launched a bolt at them. Just as it seemed the twins were in danger, Winch Flat burst onto the scene and joined the fight. Together, the three siblings battled the goblin and overpowered him, sending him fleeing into the shadows. Meanwhile, on stage, the concert began. Betty, Nate, and Abby played a beautiful series of songs, the audience swaying and cheering with every note. Then, Betty stepped forward and announced, "This last piece is special. It comes from my family's homeland." Her parents, sitting in the crowd, exchanged startled glances. The moment Betty played the first few notes of the forbidden song, Anska's eyes went wide with fear. "That's the forbidden song," she gasped, clutching Narlin's arm. "We have to stop her." Narlin, torn between pride and worry, gently held her back. "Let's wait. Let's see what happens." Outside, the goblins were defeated, but the real storm was building inside. When the family returned home, Anska was furious. "How could you do this? You stole the scroll." Betty, defiant, demanded answers. "Why is the song forbidden? Why did you keep it from me?" Before anyone could speak, their magical dog, who had a tendency to talk too much, blurted out, "Well, we ran from nowhere because of your grandfather." Everyone froze. Betty turned slowly to look at her mother. "Grandfather?" Anska took a long breath and finally revealed the truth. "Your grandfather is King Marat, the ruler of nowhere. The scroll you played contains Clef's song, a powerful melody that can cancel any magic. Long ago, the Clef and the Magi were at war. The Magi had their spells, but the Clef had music strong enough to resist any spell cast against them. For decades, the war raged on. Eventually, a fragile truce was agreed upon. The Magi would never use magic against the Clef, and the Clef would never play the forbidden song again. But peace didn't last. Anska's voice softened as she spoke about her younger days. She told Betty how, as a girl, she once sat by the riverbank with her father. Across the river stood a boy playing the violin, Narlin. She was instantly captivated. But her father saw the Clef boy and was furious. King Marat summoned a massive river dragon using his magic to destroy Narlin. In desperation, Narlin played the forbidden song and stopped the dragon in its tracks. King Marat was enraged. He ordered the capture of all Clef people and the destruction of their instruments. Narlin was sentenced to death. But Anska couldn't allow that. She helped Narlin escape. They fled nowhere together, hiding ever since. She had kept their daughter away from magic to protect her from Marat. Betty stood stunned, processing the truth. "So I'm a half Clef, half Magi?" Anska nodded. "There's more. There's an old prophecy that a child born of both bloodlines will one day restore balance between magic and music." Betty's heart beat faster. "It's me, isn't it? I'm that child." She turned to her parents with determination in her eyes. "We have to go back. We have to free the Clef from Marat's rule." But Anska warned her, "If your grandfather learns who you are, he will come after you. That's why we've kept you away from magic." Betty wasn't afraid anymore. "This is my destiny. I'm ready." The next morning, she walked to her grandmother's grave. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do," she whispered, "but I feel something pulling me forward." The grave shimmered slightly, as if her grandmother's spirit approved. Then an idea struck her. She would sneak into the quicklime games. If she couldn't learn magic at home, she would learn it there. That weekend, while Winch Flat, the twins, and the family dog used a magical portal to travel to the games, Betty secretly followed. They arrived in a dark, slimy tunnel that looked like a mix between a train station and a haunted cave. Just then, a massive worm-like train slithered in, drooling glowing goo from its mouth. As the others boarded, Betty made a daring jump and landed inside just before the doors closed. When the train arrived at the magical arena of the quicklime games, Betty stepped out, and her jaw dropped. It was a wonderland of lights, floating vendors, mythical beasts, and every kind of magician imaginable. As she wandered through the crowd, she accidentally bumped into a talking cloud, a glittering genie, and a giant walking hand who happened to be a wrestler. Before things could get messy, a girl teleported in and rescued her just in time. The girl introduced herself as Misa, and the two quickly became friends. Their introduction was interrupted by Regina, who is the host of the Quick Line Games. The tournament officially began with wild cheers. The first round? A pie-eating contest, but the pies were carnivorous monsters. Winch Flat handled it coolly, using a freezing spell to turn the beast into a real pie. The family dog happily devoured it. Betty watched in amazement. I've never seen other magi before. Just my family. Next came a fear challenge. Each contestant faced their deepest fear. For Winch Flat, the horror was adorable things. Teddy bears, rainbows, and sparkles swarmed him, and he screamed in terror while the crowd laughed. Between rounds, Misa bought magical ice cream for them, and while they sat together, she offered to teach Betty a little magic. The next challenge involved fighting a version of yourself, a magical clone that knows your every move. As Winch Flat battled his duplicate with flashing spells and booming sound effects, Misa took Betty outside to practice something simple. Flying. Just believe, Misa told her. Betty hesitated, then jumped, and suddenly she was soaring, unsteady at first, then with growing confidence. She was flying, but her joy was short-lived. Anska appeared in a flash of light, her face stern. What do you think you're doing? She scolded Betty harshly and dragged her home. Betty was grounded for sneaking away, but something had changed inside her. The next morning, Betty was surprised to see Misa waiting outside her window, waving at her with a cheerful grin. Her surprise knew no bounds. Without wasting a moment, Betty quietly climbed out and joined her new friend. The two girls wandered off together, escaping the buzz of their magical household. Misa led her into a quiet, hidden forest clearing where tall trees whispered ancient secrets and a gentle breeze made the leaves shimmer. Close your eyes, Misa said gently. Don't force anything. Just breathe, and let the magic come naturally. Betty took a deep breath, letting the calm of the forest fill her. Her hands hovered in front of her, and she concentrated deeply, focusing on the spark she always felt inside. Slowly, to her amazement, a small glowing orb of pure magic began to form in her palms. It pulsed softly with light, warm and alive. I did it, she whispered in disbelief. Misa smiled, but her eyes were heavy with something deeper. There's something I need to tell you. My family, we once led a rebellion in nowhere. We tried to overthrow King Marat. We believed music and magic should be free, not ruled by fear. But the rebellion failed. My family was cast out, and that broke the king's heart. It tore the kingdom apart. Betty's face fell. She didn't know what to say. Misa, her guide and friend, had just revealed a truth that made her part of a broken legacy, one that mirrored Betty's own hidden heritage. She couldn't hide the shock in her eyes. Over the next few days, despite the heavy truth between them, Misa continued to teach her magic. Betty learned faster than either of them expected. She could summon light, control wind, and even float a few inches off the ground. But this magical routine came at a price. Betty started skipping her after-school band rehearsals. Her human friends, Abby and Nate, noticed. Abby tried to stay patient, but Nate was clearly upset. First she ditches practice, he muttered, and now she barely talks to us? One afternoon, Betty came home to find Winch Flat and their dog in the backyard, scurrying around with party streamers and glowing balloons. They were whispering and casting little spells. Curious, Betty asked her mother what was going on. Anska smiled. They're planning a surprise for you, sweetheart. Your birthday is tomorrow. We've invited all your friends, Abby, Nate, everyone. There'll be magical games, enchanted treats, everything. Betty's heart warmed. But then her mother added, before the party ends, Winch will cast a memory spell on everyone. No one can leave with remembering it. It's for their safety and ours. That part didn't sit well with Betty. What's the point of a birthday party? She whispered sadly, if no one remembers it? Later that night, as she sat on the porch, her magical dog came and nudged her gently. You know, he said, curling up beside her, your siblings have spells, your parents have their powers, but you've lived a real life in the human world. You've got heart. And sometimes, that's the most powerful magic of all. When her birthday finally arrived, it was perfect. The backyard sparkled with floating lights, enchanted cupcakes danced on platters, and magical games filled the air with laughter. Winch Flat took charge of memory duty while Narlin grilled hot dogs with magical flames. Abby handed Betty a beautiful new violin, her face beaming. "Happy birthday," she said. Betty hugged her. "I love it." But Nate didn't show up. He was still hurt. Even so, Betty's heart lifted when Misa appeared outside the gate. "I wasn't sure if I should come," Misa said with a small smile. "Of course you should," Betty replied, pulling her inside without hesitation. But the moment Misa stepped in, her form flickered, and everything changed. She twisted and transformed into a terrifying creature, long limbs, glistening eyes, and a spider-like body. "I'm not Misa," the creature said. "I am Voss." Gasps filled the party. The music stopped. Voss laughed cruelly, his many legs clacking against the floor. "You really believed I was your friend? Learning magic? That was cute." Voss launched magical storms from her limbs and captured Winch Flat, Narlin, and Betty's parents in an instant. They tried to resist, but her magic was too strong. Just as Voss reached for Betty, the ground beneath her glowed, and her grandmother's spirit rose from the earth. In a flash of light, she pulled Betty into the graveyard, out of Voss's grasp. When Betty emerged again, she found her home in ruins. The backyard was scorched. Magical decorations were shredded and drifting in the wind. Just then, Nate walked up with his violin slung over his shoulder. "Looks like I'm late to the party." Betty threw her arms around him and sobbed. "I'm so sorry." She told him everything. Nate listened quietly, then nodded. "Let's go get your family back." Together, they opened a magical portal to the underground tunnel. Just as they were about to leave, Abby showed up. "You're not doing this without me," she said firmly. The three of them boarded the slime-slick-warm train once more and headed straight for the Kingdom of Nowhere. When they arrived, they found the land quiet and tense. They sought out the Clef people, those who had once lived by music, and begged them to believe again. Betty pulled out the forbidden scroll and showed it to Uncle Kano, a quiet man with deep eyes and a sorrowful smile. After that, Uncle Kano led Betty deep into the castle dungeon. There, behind a locked gate, was her mother. "Mom!" Betty cried, running to her. Anska reached through the bars, tears in her eyes. "I knew you'd come." But the reunion was short-lived. Woolis appeared in a flash of black smoke and, with a snap, teleported Betty away. She landed in the palace dining hall, lavish, golden, and cold. At the far end of the table sat King Marat. "Welcome, my granddaughter," he said, smiling warmly. "It's time you learned where you truly belong." Her parents and Winch Flat sat around the table too, mouths gagged, hands tied. They looked at Betty helplessly. As punishment for his crimes, the king declared, "Narlin shall be banished to the far beyond. And you will be the new princess of Nowhere." Guards stepped forward to take Narlin away. "No!" Betty cried. Then, in a trembling voice, she began to sing a song, a soft, familiar tune she used to sing with her father as a child. King Marat froze. The melody echoed through the chamber, stirring something long buried in his heart. His hands trembled. His eyes welled with tears. He remembered he had never truly hated music. But before peace could settle, Voss turned to the crowd and revealed her real plan. "This king betrayed us," she shouted, siding with the Clef filth. She rallied the crowd, turning them against Marat. A big fight erupts between them. Betty and her family try their best to defeat Voss, but Voss is too powerful. Then Betty starts using her magic and becomes a beam of light, striking Voss with pure energy. But Voss was powerful. She shifted into her monstrous form, lunging forward with venomous fury. Just when all seemed lost, Nate, Abby, and the Clef people stormed in. Together, they sang the ancient song, a harmony that nullified magic itself. Voss shrieked, her power unraveling. She reverted to her spider form, weakened and vulnerable. Betty summoned every ounce of her magic and music, lifted her violin, and struck the final note. A golden burst of light engulfed Voss, and with one last roar, she was banished to the far, far away air, forever. Peace returned. The Clefs and the Magi were finally united again. Back home, Betty's parents threw a real birthday party. No spells, no memory wipes, just laughter, music, and love. King Marat, now humbled and filled with pride, began teaching Betty the art of magic, passing on every bit of wisdom he had. And with that, the story of the girl who brought magic and emotion together came to a beautiful, powerful end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon, and tell us in the comments what you loved the most.